Okay, guys, so the first lesson is um, preparing. We've got to prepare for it, right? So by now, you should have downloaded at least 20 songs from Beatport and put them in a folder which you can easily locate. So for this one, I've just got October, week one, because that's the month and week we're in right now recording this video. And I've saved some songs that's just been released for my upcoming radio show. Okay, my radio show's 2 hours, so I've saved enough songs. I've got 46 songs in here, so that should definitely do me for the 2 hours. Okay, so now I've got these songs in this folder. I'm just going to open up Mixed in Key, which you should have installed. So I've got that down here. This is what Mixed in Key looks like, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag all of the songs I've downloaded from this folder into Mixed in Key. That's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm just going to wait for Mixed in Key to analyse all of these songs. Now it's done that, you will see back in the folder that it's updated the name of it in your folder, in your original folder. So you can see now next to the song it's got the key, which is 9/8, and the BPM. Before we done this, that wasn't there. It was just the name of the song. So now this is done, we can actually close Mixed in Key. Now we want to open Rekordbox. Okay, so here's Rekordbox, and then what we simply want to do is, these are the playlists I've got at the minute. You probably won't have any right now. So before I actually drag this into here, what I'm going to do is I'll just open this up a bit more. Just going to go to Rekordbox preferences and just make sure my settings are right before I start dragging anything in. So obviously you'd only need to do this once, but just for the purpose of this video. So here we've got just kind of how it views. So this doesn't really matter so much. We can kind of keep this on standard. What I would suggest doing is just changing the waveform to RGB, and this basically puts a colour on your tracks to kind of show where there's lyrics in the tracks, where there's bass lines, where there's synths, and it kind of different to colours rather than the whole waveform being blue. So I'd probably have it like that. Yeah, I mean, this sort of stuff doesn't really matter too much how it views. So I'm just going to go to audio, and depending if I've got a Scarlett interface hooked up, I might click the Scarlett interface here, just so the audio is coming out, and then leave the rest as it is. Now this is the important bit, because at the moment in Track Analyst it's got key ticked, but we don't actually want Rekordbox to analyse the key and change the key, because we've already analysed the key within Mixed in Key. So BPM is fine because it gets that right, that's fine. But if it was to analyse the key, it would name it as a standard key, like an A minor key or a C major key or something like that. Whereas we've put it in Mixed in Key to kind of get our DJ keys for when we're mixing. So we want to make sure that is unticked. Auto Analyst, we want to make sure that's enabled, so when we just drag it in, it automatically analyzes all your tracks. And that's about everything we need on those settings in Analyst. So I'll just go to CDJ and device. So these are the settings you want to change for your actual CDJs and controllers. I mean, I'm not going to go into this too much detail now, because it doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to click through. So if you want to make it the same as mine, you can do. So again, on waveform color displayed on CDJ, you can change this to RGB, and then the waveform is going to be like we discussed earlier. So it's not just going to be blue, it's going to be colored, so you can actually see where there's lyrics on the track. It's really useful. Then category, so we've got active categories: artist, album, track, key, playlist, history, search, matching folder. So, if you did want any of these other bits and pieces on there when you're on your decks, you can do. So if you wanted genre, or maybe the label on there or something like that, we can just click this arrow and put it on there. Then we can go sort, and this is what you can sort it by in your on your decks. And again, we'll look at this in much more detail when we're actually on the decks, but these are settings you can play around with in Rekordbox. So select item which is shown next to the track name on CDJ. You can put artist, which is next to the name. That's cool. And then my settings, and these are a few more settings what we don't really need to go through right now, because I really want to show you actually on the CDJs. So this is a good one to know. So hotkey auto load. So prepare hotkey auto load setting for CDJ use on import. So when you, again, we'll come to this later in the course, but when we load in, we do want that ticked. So make sure that's ticked. And that's about it for that setting. So if we go to keyboard, these are just like little shortcuts. Again, we don't really need to go into that. Advanced is, we can kind of leave that as it is. Just looking through there now. So yeah, that's fine. We can leave this as it is as well. Recordings, so when we record something through Rekordbox, which I'll show you later on the course as well, where do you want it to be saved? So I've just got my location of files there, and you can change this as well, and the rest of the settings can just be left the same. And then others, again, this is absolutely fine as it is, just can be left like that. And then license, this is where you'd need to activate your license if you've bought the Rekordbox. Okay, so again, there's not really a lot to learn from that, but I just wanted to kind of click on each one, so if you did need to copy the settings just so you know they're right, you can do that. So I'm just going to click off of that now. Now I'm ready to drag in the folder which is here. So I'm ready to drag in this folder which has got all my keys in place, because we've already dropped it in mixing key, and I can just drag that into my playlists. Now it's importing. If I click into it here, you'll see that it's analysing each track. You'll see that it's not changing the key. The key's already in there because we've done it from mixed in key, but it is just adding the BPMs in there because we left that ticked. Which was the right thing to do. And you'll see it's analysing the waveform. It's giving us a coloured waveform so we can clearly see if a track's got a lot of lyrics in it or not, or if it's got a synth, a lot of bass. It's quite clear to see there. So I'll just wait for that them to analyse all these tracks. Okay, all good. So now what I'm going to do is just double click into the first one. And I'm going to change this to 2-player, just because I like it on 2-player. If I wanted to drag another track into the second one, it's a bit similar to having like two decks on your CDJs. So now what I'm going to do is, obviously you can just double click that one to get it in player 1. So now what I'm going to do is just make sure that the beat of this track is right on the grid. So by doing this, what you can do is kind of zoom in a lot using this plus button here, and look where the beat first comes on the drop. So the beat first comes in right there, I would say. So I'd actually line that up so this bar here is on right at the start of the beat, and I'll tell you why in a minute why this is important, but that's right on the start of the beat there. At the moment, Rekordbox is kind of aimed it to be right on the start of the beat here, and we don't want that. We want it here because we can see that the beat actually starts right there. It's only a little bit out, but it does actually make a difference. So if I go there and then press this button here, that then moves it. So it moves what Rekordbox has saved to right on the beat of where we want it. So if I zoom back out, I can see clearly now that every line is right on the beat. It's right there, okay? So if I go back to the start and play this, okay, we've got it right. We've got those, the main ones right on the drop. So we know that's in time now. It's really important to get this right. So what I'd then do is go through every one and make sure it's all lined up. But obviously, I'm not going to bore you with going through all of that. But what I am going to do is on this one, I'm going to set a cue point. So a cue point I would always set at the start of a track. And you can set a cue point by either hitting cue up here, right, or pressing C on your keyboard. I press C and then I press M for memory, or you can press memory here. Okay, so Q and memory, or C and M. That's for Q and memory, okay? So now if I play that, we've got a cue point right at the start. So if I just press Q, it goes back to the cue point. And again, we'll learn more about this when we actually head over to the decks, but it's good to kind of get it all ready in Rekordbox. So I'm just going to show you another example where we'd need to change the grid on a track. So, you know, a lot of them you can load in and they'd be fine. So, you know, I didn't change it on that one. I don't need to change it on that one. And I can just tell this by kind of looking at these points. And if it's like right on the edge, you won't need to change it. And then, I mean, you can definitely zoom in and just kind of check. But I've zoomed in here and look, that doesn't need to be changed. Rekordbox most of the time gets it right. So I would just put a nice, I'll just press C and M on that one to put a nice cue point there. But with this one, it's another example where you do need to change it. And looking at that, I mean, it looks pretty fine, doesn't it? But I just sort of noticed that this blue here is, you know, is just before that pointer there. It's really, really small and you might need your glasses, but it does come before that pointer. So on this one, I would double check. So I'd go over here. I'd zoom in using the little plus sign. And then I'd check. And you can see that that point there needs to be right on the start of the blue here. So, and I do like to get this really precise. So right there. And then I press this little button and that moves it all across. So then I'd zoom back out and then, you know, you can see that this is much more in line now. So then I'd just put C and M to put my cue point in. And then I'd carry on moving down. So I'm just going to do this for the rest of it. And again, you can see here, I've just clicked on this next one. Rekordbox has messed this one up again. And this is a really, really obvious one. So this would be like, you know, a major kind of mess up if you didn't do this beforehand. So if we zoom in now, you know, there is an argument with this where you don't really need to do this because you'd learn to DJ by ear, and this is kind of if you don't DJ by ear. And I completely agree with that. I learned to beat match by ear, and I'm going to teach you guys how to beat match by ear. But in case of emergencies, if you've got the tools at hand, it's good to kind of get all of this, you know, programmed in. So you're just prepared. You've got the technology to be prepared as possible. So why not use it? So let's zoom in right onto this one. Gonna put my red line right on the start of the B and just press that button to move it over. Just gonna zoom out again so I can see what's going on. Go back to the start and set my cue point. Okay, and then I'm going to just carry on doing it with the rest of these. Okay, so I've gone through and I've added my cue points to all of my tracks. I've lined up the grid correctly, so the grid is on the beat, and then I've put a cue point at the start of every one of my tracks, alright? So now I've done that, I'm going to export this playlist to my USB. So you should have bought your USB by now. You should have plugged it into your computer, and then you can just right click on this playlist and export playlist. and then my USB is called no name, so I'm just going to export it to no name. All right, and then down here you'll see that it's taking some time just to export this playlist to your USB. So we just got to wait for that to upload all your songs to the USB. Okay, so now that has uploaded, we can now go to devices, just click eject. Make sure you always eject your USB, because if you don't, it can really mess it up and delete all your songs. So click eject. That's ejected it now. So now I can take my USB out, I can plug it into my decks or controller, and I've got my songs on there ready to start mixing. Which is obviously what we're going to come to in the next video.